doesn't Caesar read Artemidorus's letter, and what purpose does this serve?
Well, Caesar doesn't read Artemidorus's letter because he is like very consumed with his goal of receiving the crown and becoming king. That's all he's focusing on right at the moment, and he doesn't want anything else to distract him, because in the book we can see that he has already been distracted by Calpurnia's dream, and now he just wants to go to the capital.
Why does Cassius think that their assassination plan has been discovered?
Well, in the play, line 14, Populus walks up to Cassius and says, "I wish your enterprise today may thrive," which is really disconcerting to Cassius because he didn't tell anybody about their plan to kill Caesar. Only the conspirators know about the plan, so he thinks that it got out and Caesar might know what they're trying to do, and he gets even more worried when Populus goes and talks to Caesar right after saying that. So it's very concerning for all of the conspirators.
Why does Caesar get angry at Metellus, and what purpose does this exchange between Caesar and Metellus serve?
So when the conspirators are in the capital and they're about to kill Caesar to distract him, Metellus is begging Caesar persistently to release his banishment on his brother, and Caesar keeps refusing multiple times, just to try and establish his rule and be strict and everything. He's not letting anything slide, and so he gets very angry because Metellus is persistently asking him to release the banishment, even though he won't.
And that's the purpose, to try and establish his rule by not letting him. What does Brutus tell the frightened senators after Caesar's assassination?
So Brutus tells them to go out and spread the word that freedom has been achieved. His exact words, I think, were, "Be not affrighted, fly not, stand still, ambition's debt is paid." And then that was what Brutus said, and then one of the other conspirators said, "Liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead, run hence, proclaim, cry about the streets." So they're pretty much telling all of the senators to go and tell everyone in Rome what had happened, and that they're no longer under a tyrant, that they're free.
How does Calpurnia's dream come true?
So Calpurnia, before Caesar went to the castle, she had a dream that Caesar's statue was going to be running with blood, and that he pretty much a very bad omen that he was going to die. And this came true because Caesar died a very bloody death by the conspirators. They stabbed him a lot, and he died right on Pompey's statue.
What does Anthony want from his conspirators, and why is this a problem?
So Anthony wants, he has a couple things that he wants. He wants, for one, these conspirators to kill him, because as he puts it, there's no other honorable way for him to die than by like Caesar's murder weapon with Caesar. So he wants to die, but that's a problem because the conspirators said they weren't going to kill him because it would be too bloody and too gruesome of an act to do. And then the other thing he wants is for the conspirators to let him speak at Caesar's funeral. This is not good for the conspirators because Mark Antony can persuade the people of Rome to go against the conspirators and think that what they were doing was not honorable, even though they believe it was, and they want the people of Rome to be on their side.
What restrictions did Brutus place on Anthony that allows him to speak at the funeral?
So one of the things that Anthony wants from the conspirators is to speak at Caesar's funeral, and Brutus tells him that he can, but Cassius makes him reconsider because he doesn't want Anthony to sway the people of Rome against the conspirators. So Brutus comes up with some rules, and what he says to Antony is, "But speak all good you can devise of Caesar, and say you do it by our permission." And then he also says, "And you shall speak in the same pulpit whereto I am going after my speech is ended." So pretty much he's saying, like, you have to tell the people of Rome that you are allowed to do this because of us, and he can't speak bad of Caesar. He's only allowed to like mourn his death as a friend, and then he also says that he can't he has to speak after Brutus. So he can't change their minds. What does Antony predict in his soliloquy?
So in Antony's soliloquy, he talks about how there's going to be a bloody curse on Rome, and that there's going to be a civil war as vengeance for Caesar and for Caesar's death.
Yeah, he said it's going to be so horrific that Caesar's body is going to pretty much come back from the grave to haunt them and see all of the curse.
And I think that it's going to foreshadow some like conflict in the near future.
Yeah.
What are Antony's intentions as the scene ends?
So as the first scene ends, Antony says that he plans to test the crowd with his speech, where he's gonna talk about his true feelings regarding what the conspirators did. He's pretty much gonna tell them everything that happened and then try to convince them to his side and not Brutus's.
And in the book, one of the quotes is, "In my oration, how the people take the cruel issue of these bloody men."
Yeah.
Which kind of also talks about the civil war from question 8.
How does Brutus justify the killing of Caesar to the people of Rome?
So he starts with talking about how much he loves Caesar, because he says, "To him I say that Brutus's love to Caesar was no less than his." But then he talks about how he doesn't love Caesar, and he says that he loves Rome more when he says, "Not that I had loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more."
Yeah, pretty much saying that he still loved Caesar, but he cares about the people of Rome more and the future of Rome, trying to appeal to the people of Rome that he's talking to, trying to get them feel the love from Brutus and then be more on his side and not as angry about Caesar's death.
Yeah, he's trying to convince them that "Oh yeah, I did this and it was right, it wasn't the wrong thing to do."
Yeah, and some of the things he says to try and convince them that that he needed to do this was that he says that Caesar, if he was still alive, would have turned the citizens of Rome into slaves and that he was too ambitious to be king.
What is the crowd's reaction to Brutus's speech?
So the crowd, when Brutus is speaking, completely believes everything that Brutus says. They're completely on his side. They are so on his side that they want to make him a statue, and they pretty much want him to be the new Caesar. They are believing all that he is saying, and because he's appealing to them being citizens of Rome that he loved more than Caesar, the reason why Caesar's death, they're happier about it.
Yeah, they say, "Give him a statue with his ancestors, let him be Caesar." So they're talking about how they want him to become the new Caesar and how he loved Rome and it was the right thing to do.
How does Antony say that Caesar died?
So to the public, Antony, he talks about all the stab wounds that Caesar went through, and then he talks about how Brutus, he had the killing stab wound, and how if Brutus wouldn't have stabbed him, then it probably would have ended differently. He says, "This was the most unkind cut of all," which is talking about Brutus's cut and how it killed Caesar.
Yeah, and it's especially impactful because Brutus loved Caesar and Caesar loved Brutus, and so since they were so close, that it seems like a really, really big betrayal from Brutus.
Yeah, it kind of shows how untrustworthy Brutus is, and is this really who you want as your king?
Yeah.
What is the news that the messenger brings to Antony at the end of the scene?
So at the end of the scene, a messenger comes and tells Antony that Octavius is outside of the gates of Rome and Lepidus is there too, at Caesar's palace. And so Antony is pretty much just tells the messenger it's not safe right now because everybody's rioting because of the death of Caesar. So he tells them to stay there.
Yeah, he says on lines 284 and 285 that Brutus and Cassius are rid like madmen through the gates of Rome. Just talking about how they've fled the city and how they're not there anymore.
Yeah, because of all the chaos.
Right.
What is the excuse the mob uses to kill Cinna?
So the mob, they're talking about how Cinna is such a bad poet and how he was when he was traveling throughout the city of Rome, he gets caught up in the mob and they're "Oh, you're such a bad poet," and they think that he was a part of the conspirators, but they're not. They like thought that he was, but it wasn't actually Cinna.
Yeah, because he has the same name. They assumed that he was a conspirator.
Yeah. He says, "I am Cinna the poet. I am Cinna the poet. Tear him for his bad verses. Tear him for his bad verses." So they're talking about how much they want to kill him because they think that he was one of the conspirators.
Yeah, and Cinna's trying to defend himself, like, I'm not that Cinna, I'm a poet, I'm not a conspirator. And this just shows kind of how off the rails the mob is if they're willing to kill someone just because they have the same name as a conspirator, how strongly they believe in Antony's message now, and how much they're on his side.
Yeah.